let's talk about our customer and understanding them during the negotiations. One of the things that I have done in my career is I've spent a lot of time and invested a lot of time in understanding the customer. I really want to know what the customer thinks, what their thought processes are, when they come to the dealership, what happens in those situations. Hold on one second, folks. I'm going to turn something off because I'm getting feedback here. So I want to know how they feel. Why are they so scared of us? You've got to understand that we have a job, and our job is to sell cars, service cars, fix cars. We're in here to make money, and let's not forget that fact that we're here to make money. When I meet with salespeople and I do these big workshops and classes, I always ask salespeople, should the customer be afraid of you? And inadvertently, every time they say no. And I say, well, that's the wrong answer. You see, the customer should be and is terrified of you. They're absolutely terrified. Why? Well, it's simple. Your job is to extract money from them. How much do you want? You want as much as possible. And when do you want to extract this money? You want to extract it right now. Now, are you going to give them value for what you extract their money for? Absolutely. You're going to give them a car, a brand new car to them, whether it's a new car or a used car. It really doesn't matter. But your job is to extract money. So when the customer comes to the dealership, this is their defenses. They are scared to death. So as that process moves along, the question now becomes, do they become more defensive or do they become less defensive? And that's the role of the salesperson. The salesperson's job is to create an environment where when we get to the negotiations, the customer is at the lowest level humanly possible. So let's think about a couple of things. What makes people defensive to begin with through the process? Another question I like to ask is, are buyers liars? Do buyers lie to us? I've been in this industry a long time. I sold my first car back in 1979. And in 1979, I was taught by other salespeople that buyers are liars. You can't trust a word out of their mouths. And unfortunately, that hurts us. Now, the flip side is we can change it. So I always say, hey, what are your thoughts of this? What if I told you that I could come and work in your dealership? I don't care where your dealership is. I'll work there for the next 90 days and I'll be a top salesperson. I'll sell a ton of cars and nobody will ever lie to me ever once. And I ask who thinks that's possible. And inevitably, everybody says, no, it's impossible. But it is possible. You see, buyers lie when we threaten them. And when they feel threatened, that's when they lie and get defensive. And your job is to release those defenses. So let's think about this for a second. What would make a buyer lie and get defensive right up front? Well, the questions you asked. I'm going to tell you right now, if you asked me if I was buying a car today, I would say no. Now, that might be true or not. I'm going to tell you that if you ask me what my budget is, I'm going to lowball you. If my budget was $500 a month and you asked me what my budget was, I'm going to tell you it's $400, maybe $350. See, my thought process is I'll get more money from my bank, more bang for my buck. And number two is you won't make as much money. So I lie to you. Now, here's what happens. Now you show me cars in the $350 budget. Well, I don't like the $350 budget. So when it comes time to negotiate, I just say to you, I want to go home and think about it. See, I'm not going home to think about the money. I'm going home to think about the fact that you didn't show me a car that I like. We all know that people will pay a few dollars more to buy what they want. You cannot convince me that somebody that comes in with a true budget of $350 won't spend $400 to get what they want to get. You cannot convince me of that fact. They will if you do the right job. So why would I set the stage out with people being defensive and people lying to me? That just doesn't make sense. If you ask me right up front, do I have a trade? I might lie to you. I'm being programmed the way I might say no, because I think I'm going to get a better deal, then I'm going to introduce the trade. But let's say I say yes. And then you ask me, well, what do I think my trade's worth? Well, there you go. I'm going to lie to you again. If I think my car's worth $10,000, I'm going to tell you it's worth $14,000. And now when we get to the negotiations, we're going to have a customer that is very defensive, and it's going to make it harder for us. When you ask me all these silly questions about features and benefits and options and accessories, well, you're confusing me. You're backing me into a corner. I don't know the right answer to say. So you see, when a customer comes to the lot, your job is to do three things, and it's always been the same three things. Number one, it's to find a car that they love. Forget about the money. Forget about it. I'm telling you. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, what if I show them a car that's too expensive? You know what? You find a car that's too expensive, they fall in love with it, they're going to buy it. Okay. Number two, you got to get them to fall in love with you. They got to like you personally. People don't buy from people they don't like, especially now. I can go 10 miles down the street to another dealership. Think about this. You compete against every dealership in the country. I can just get on the internet. I live in Florida. I can buy a car in Michigan. I can buy a car in Kentucky. Just have it shipped to me. And number three, you got to get the customer to like the dealership. And if you're making me defensive throughout that process, those things can't happen. You see, when I meet and greet a customer, I just want to know two things. Hey, do you want a newer used car? Because I got to know where to go. And are you looking more for a coupe, a sedan, a minivan, utility vehicle, or truck? And then I'm going to show you cars. You're going to tell me which car you like the best. You're going to tell me by the expressions, by the cars you look at. You're going to look at window stickers, and you're going to show me visibly and visually what you fall in love with. And that's the direction I'm going to go. You see, once the customer falls in love with that car, the process becomes easier. Now, we're going to do a demonstration drive. Again, we got to be careful of the questions. On the questions, people get defensive. You know, the old question of, so who's the first person you're going to show your new car to? Well, I would look at that and say, it's rude. I mean, I'm not buying the car. I might snap back and say, I was buying the car today. And now you're defensive. I've always preached on the demo ride, be silent. Let the customers talk to you. Let them talk about what they want to talk about. It's all about them. It's not about you. If that demo ride can become something that I'm enjoying, well, guess what? When it comes time for the negotiations, it makes it a lot easier. I also am a big believer in a longer demo ride. You know, this 3 minutes around the block thing is just, it's stupid. I mean, I hate to use that word, but it makes no sense. It's the way I was taught. You know, we had a pre-planned demo route. Right turn, right turn, right turn, right turn. Oh, great, we're back at the dealership. And now the customer's driven the car for 3.2 miles. Well, how do you fall in love with something that's 3.2 miles? You know, a female goes to a shoe store. She spends 3 minutes walking around the store in the shoes to see if they're fit and they're comfortable to spend $100. And we want to take the customer on a 6-minute drive around the block. It doesn't make sense. Now, you finish your demo ride, and now you're doing a presentation, an external presentation, show them all the different features of the car. You see, at this point in my process, I've never asked them what their budget is. Do you think I know whether they like the car or not? Of course I do. I can tell by the conversation. I can tell by their facial expression, by their body language. You see, the next thing that we do, which is the worst thing in the world, is we now try to trial close the customer before they come into the dealership. What you do and what we do, I did the same thing. We set the customer up to be defensive. We prepared them to be defensive. Question. So, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, if we can come together on terms and numbers, would you buy the car today? I'd tell you no. And then you would ask me why. And I'd say to you, well, you're the first place we've been to. And now what's happened is now you're getting more defensive. And I'm lying to you because you backed me into a corner and I didn't want to be in that corner. It doesn't make sense to me. Don't you think you know if I like the car? And here's the worst part of all. No matter what I say, you still end up taking me to the next step. So why ask the question? I love this one. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best, how would you rank the car? I would never tell you a 10. Show my cards to you that I'm in love with the car. I might say a 6, a 7, an 8. And then you come back and you say to me, well, what would it take to make it a 10? Again, you're backing me into a corner. Now I have to defend myself. Now I'm going to lie to you. Who knows what I say out of my mind? I don't know. Put $10,000 in cash in the trunk and you might have a 10. I don't know. These things don't make sense. You've been with a customer for an hour and a half. You know if they like the car. You know if you're going in the right direction. You're making it harder to negotiate. Okay? Service walks. How could you not do a service walk? I told you in the beginning, you sell 3 things. You got to get the customer to fall in love with the car, fall in love with you, and fall in love with the dealership. How can they fall in love with the dealership if you're not doing a service walk? If you're not showing them all the added features and benefits that come with your dealership? It just makes absolutely no sense to me. Now we're going to bring the customer into the dealership. So now we're going to sit down and we're going to start our negotiations. Well, there's 2 ways we can negotiate. One with you being defensive and one with you being non-defensive. I'd rather the customer be non-defensive. That's a more logical situation for me. So we bring the customer in and we sit him down at our desk. Now we start taking information. Well, the amount of information I'm going to give you is going to depend on how much I like you. If I felt that you were pressuring me, if you came across as one of those slick salespeople, I'm going to be more defensive and I'm not going to give you all the information I want to give you. Or I'm going to be careful about that information. Now, me personally, this is just a personal thing on my side. I don't like asking people about their trade before I present numbers. And I'm not saying that I'm right and the other way is wrong. It's just an opinion. I do believe wholeheartedly that what you do is based on your own personalities. I believe there are some things that some people do that I absolutely would not do. I totally disagree with, but it works for them. And I think they should keep doing that. So it's my opinion. And as a consultant and a trainer, my job is to share with you my opinion. You see, I don't like asking people up front for their trade because it muddies the waters. Because the minute you ask, what's your trade? They say, most salespeople ask, what do you think it's worth? And if they fail to ask that, well, guess what happens next? When that salesperson goes to the desk to pencil the deal, now the manager asks the salesperson, what do they think their trade's worth? And the salesperson doesn't know. And now we got to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And to me, that's not logical and conducive to an environment that's comfortable for the customer. So now let's say the manager sends you back and says, I need to know what they think their trade's worth. So now you go back and you ask the customer, what do you think your trade's worth? Now the customer knows it's worth $10,000, and now they say $14,000. So a good salesperson is great. And we go back to the manager, and now we have defensive postures times 2. Because now we have a manager who says, what, are these people on drugs? You gotta be kidding me. This car's not worth $14,000. This car's worth $8,000 top. Now you got a salesperson that's frustrated. Why would you do that to a salesperson when he's negotiating a car deal? That makes no logical sense. That's not a sign of leadership. The job of a leader is to fire me up and get me excited, get me motivated, make me think I'm going to sell a car. But instead, we start getting negative, and we create an environment where the salesperson and the sales manager are not having a friendly environment. It's not good. It's not conducive. So going back to my opinion, I don't like to ask. So what I do is I come out and I present a number. And then I let the customer say, hey, but we have a trade. The minute the customer says we have a trade, bam, fireworks go out in my head. I'm shooting fireworks out, because you know what that means? I'm going to sell a car. Because if they weren't excited about the car, they wouldn't have said we have a trade. So now the customer says, hey, we got a trade. Great. We're looking for trades. What do you got? And I write it all down. And I'm always positive. How many miles run? Oh, 70,000. That's fantastic. How's the condition? Great. Is the maintenance up to date? Great. The tire's good. Are there any dings and dents? No, just little scratches from the supermarket. Great. Oh, great. Sounds like a great car. Why would I want to have my customer now being dejected in a situation where I should be doing that? And then the old school philosophy is you go outside and you do that silent walk around of the customer's trade. You touch everything. You touch the fender that's dented, the tires and this and that. I don't understand what you're trying to accomplish. You think I'm now going to think my car's worth nothing? Look, if I got an ugly baby, don't tell me my baby's ugly. I might know it's ugly, but don't you dare tell me it's ugly. That doesn't make sense. Don't do that. So now we go and we get a trade appraisal. And now the appraisal comes in at $8,000. As a manager, I'm going to be, hey, I got great news. It's worth $8,000. If I start with, well, people think they're on drugs. The car's not worth $14,000. It doesn't make sense. It's not conducive to negotiating, to getting a customer in an environment where they want to negotiate. Now, let's back this up a second, because this is another area I have a big problem with. And that's, if you want to have a non-defensive customer, you have to treat them in a non-defensive manner. The way we ask for the sale, I think, is horrible in most situations. Now, I know some of you do a very good job at this, and there's different ways to pencil a car deal. I believe that. I believe that each way works. And again, it's based on your personality, it's your dealership, your environment. Some people like using a 4-square. Some people like using multiple options with 15 different options, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. That's fine. Some people just like to quote a payment. Some people just like to quote a whole price. It doesn't matter to me how you present your numbers. I have my opinions, and we'll save that for another session. But now let's say we come back and we've got the information. And let's go with the assumption, which is the most popular, is multiple options. 36, 48, 60 months, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 down. Salesperson presents the numbers to the customer, lays it all out to them. Fantastic. Now, one of the problems I have with this concept is it's a lot of numbers. And now the customer's got to think about those numbers. And that's when they might want to take it home or say, can I get a copy of this? And that creates a problem. But my biggest problem now is how we ask for the sale. So now we present the numbers. And then the salesperson puts their pen down and says, circle the one that works best for you. To me, that is rude and disrespectful. It's an assumptive close, and I understand the concepts behind an assumptive close. But now you're forcing me to defend myself again. You've given me an option. And I don't know if options are a good thing right now. Another concept is to present the numbers and then be silent. He who speaks first loses. Now, I'd love to know who came up with that concept, because that one makes absolutely zero sense to me. I mean, zero. So I present my numbers. I shut up. Customer states, We want to go home and think about it. Can I get a photocopy of this? Well, they spoke first. I lost. It doesn't make sense to me. Listen, if you want something, you have to ask for it. If you don't, you won't get it. But you have to ask politely, and you have to ask kindly and courtesy. Now, I love making gross. Don't anybody misunderstand me. I love making money. And I have no guilt, no ill feelings as long as I do the right thing. So if someone comes into my dealership and I make a great presentation, I sell them a great product, and I make a lot of money on the deal, I'm entitled to that. And there's nothing wrong with that. So don't ever be afraid to make gross on a car. Let me give you an analogy. And, if I've got women out there, please understand my analogy is not based on offending anybody. But I had an experience a while ago. And I was at a restaurant and I was eating my lunch, had some earbuds in, I was watching a movie, and a young lady sat next to me, and we talked for a few seconds. I forget what the conversation was about. And then another gentleman came and sat next to her on the other side. Well, they started talking. And I'm thinking, I'll pulled my earbud out because I want to listen. I'm curious, And I could tell that maybe there could be some chemistry here. I'm thinking, I'm going to watch somebody in action here. This is really cool. And this girl would give this guy all these opportunities. Like he'd say, what do you like doing on the weekends? And she would say, oh, I love going kayaking, but I can't find anybody that wants to go kayaking with me. So I'm listening. Okay, and the guy don't say anything. He goes, oh yeah, it must be hard to find someone to kayak. Like, really? And this goes on and on and on and on. So finally I finished my meal and I started to leave. Me, I got a big mouth. I like to talk to people. So it was create a little problem for somebody. So I turned around, I walked back to her, I tapped her on the shoulder. And remember, we had talked earlier. And I asked her, I said, hey, could I ask you a question? And she said, yes. I said, if this young man asks you for your phone number and a date, will you give it to him? And the guy looks at me like a stare down, like, what the are you doing? And she looks at him and looks at me and looks at him and looks at me. And then she says, yeah, I would. And I turned to the guy and I said, dude, just ask her. Just ask her. She's going to say yes. You see, we're so afraid to ask. We're so afraid of rejection. Don't be afraid of rejection. Don't be afraid of rejection. Single man asks a single girl out. She says no. She says no. We move on with our lives. We forget about it 10 minutes later. So what I'm going to share with you now is what I call the 7 most effective words to closing a car deal that does not create a defensive customer. And I'm going to start off by asking you all this question. Have I earned the right to ask for their business? I've been with them for an hour and a half. Of course I have. Of course I've earned the right to ask for their business. Let's ask. Here are the 7 most effective words. Present your numbers, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, and here are those words. Would you like to buy the car? That's it. Just ask them. Would you like to buy the car? Here's what's funny. Some people actually say yes. They look at each other, they talk, because it wasn't pressure. There was no games played. Would you like to buy the car? Yeah. Okay, great. Let's move forward. Now, here's the ironic thing about it. I've never had anybody say to me or watch this in action or had somebody say to me that somebody just said no. Not logical. Would you like to buy the car? No. People don't do that. When they say no, then they give you a reason. No, the payment's more than I wanted to spend. No, this, no, that, whatever it may be. Now, your objections that you get in the negotiations are clearly based on your presentation and demonstration. The better the presentation and demonstration you make, the easier the objections are to overcome. If you've done a great job, you're not going to get a lot of, I want to go home and think about it. You're going to get more of, the payment's too high, or you're not giving me enough for my trade. And that's a whole other session we'll go over at another time. But you have to stop attacking people. And we do that all the time. So when a customer says no or gives an objection, we have to be careful now not to put them again on the defensive. No, hey, listen, some people do want to go home and think about it. Some people are shopping. Here's the funny thing. Most of those shoppers are buyers. They're just not going to buy today. They might buy tomorrow. I'm going to be honest with you. I bought a new car a year ago. I went to 3 dealerships. I looked at 3 different cars. I wanted to find, number one priority to me. I wanted a car I loved. That was the most important thing, finding a car I liked. I didn't care if the price was cheaper somewhere else, if it's a car I didn't like. And what happens now in the negotiations is we attack people. No, we'd like to go home and think about it. Okay, what is it you want to think about? Well, we don't make snap decisions. Well, is it me? Is it the car? Is it the money? Well, you're the first place we've been to, and we still want to go look at this, this, and this. Well, we have some of those here in pre-owned. I can show you how bad they are. Okay, so now we're going to attack somebody else's product, which is not the right thing to do. And the worst part of all is the customers lied to you. Why do they lie? Because you backed them into a corner, because you attack them in your negotiations. I want you to think about these things as you're going through your day. The last final piece of thing that I want to talk about right now is our management TO. Now, before I go into what I'm going to say, because I'm going to shock some of you, I believe 1,000% in the TO process. 1,000%. I believe that two faces are better than one. Now, I don't always believe that the manager is stronger than the salesperson. That I do not believe. I believe sometimes it's just a second face. And sometimes maybe someone didn't like me, but they like them. Who knows what the reason may be. But I want you to know that every time a salesperson gets up and goes to the manager, and then two people come back, that scares the crap out of people. Now, there's no way to overcome this. Okay, so what I'm telling you and I'm warning you about is when you do come into those environments, you have to understand that. You have to understand that these customers are now getting tremendously scared of you, because now it's 2-on-1 or 2-on-2. It's a manager, and it scares people. So do I believe in early management intervention? Yeah, I don't think early management intervention hurts you one bit as long as you do it properly. As long as you do it properly, I'm A-okay with that. So let me wrap up a couple of thoughts here, okay? It's very important that you understand customers are scared of you, and they should be scared of you. It's very important that you understand that your demonstration is the key to your negotiations. It's very important that you understand that your job during the demonstration and presentation is to lower their defenses, get them to find a car they love, get them to like the salesperson, and want to do business at that dealership. If those three things come into play, I guarantee you the negotiations will be 10 times easier and you will make more money. To me, the cherry on top of any car deal is when I sell the customer a car and an hour later they're taking delivery of it and we're walking out to the car and that customer says to me, we had no intentions of buying a car today. That tells me that I did the right job. And that's what it's all about, doing the right things. So with that said, I'm going to move my camera here a little bit so I can see what's going on here. Does anybody have any questions for me? You can either raise your hand and I can turn your microphone on, or you can ask it as a handwritten question. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has. So does anybody have a question? Okay, let me see here. I think I got a question coming in right now. Okay, hold on, let me read this. Okay, okay. So I'm getting a question, and they want to know on the demo ride why I don't think the salesperson should ask questions. Let me repeat that real quickly. Every time a salesperson asks questions, the customer wants to know what they isolate and analyze the question. Why does he want to know that? I'm a very personal and private person. I don't want to tell you where I live. I don't want to tell you where my kids go to school. I really don't want to tell you what kind of work I do for a living. And every time you ask me those kind of questions, it just makes me a little bit more defensive. And I don't think it's appropriate, because what's going to happen is if you do your right job on a demo ride, the customer will talk. I mean, think about this for a second. Let's say you're with your significant other and you're driving the car, your significant other sitting next to you and the salesperson sitting in the back seat, and there's dead silence. How long in your environment can you go with dead silence? How long? I know with me, I'm thinking maybe 30 seconds. Somebody has to say something. I'll never forget years ago when my wife and I were looking for a car, that salesperson did that to us. And when we were in the car, we were driving, and there was dead silence. And I'd already been in the car business for 10 years. And I'll never forget what I had to break the ice. I'm a talker. So who am I going to talk to? Am I going to talk to the guy in the back seat or my wife? So it was easier for me to talk to my wife. And I turned to my wife after 30 seconds of silence, and you'll never guess, you're going to guess, what I asked my wife to break the ice. Yeah, I asked her, what do you think of the car? How do you like it? How does it drive? What are your thoughts? And what happened is that she opens up more to me than she did to the salesperson. So I just believe in silence. Okay. All right. Let me read this question. Okay. This is about the demo ride. Again, I believe in a longer demo ride. Absolutely 100%. I believe the longer the customer is in the car driving around, I believe that it's going to add to my value of the presentation and demonstration. I believe that during the demo ride, it's important that we have conversation. Don't get me wrong. I want conversation, but I want the conversation to be more mutual conversation. Listen, if somebody asks me, what part of town do you live in? And I say, I live on the north side, I might say to them, well, what part of town do you guys live in? Oh, we live in the south side. If they ask me, how long have I worked here? Oh, I've worked here for 7 years. Then I might ask, well, what kind of work do you guys do? I want my demo drive to be an enjoyable, relaxing event. Now, how do I guarantee a longer demo ride? It's real easy. I always pick a destination that most people that in my market area are from would know that destination. A mall, an airport, a historical place. So I might say, you're familiar with the mall? Oh, yeah, sure. We go there all the time. Great. Why don't we use the mall as our destination point? Now, I know it's going to take 15 minutes to get to the mall. So I let them drive to the mall, and I let them drive whatever course they want to take. They want to go on the highways, the side roads, whatever they want to do. And we get to the mall, we turn around. I know that's going to be a 30-minute demonstration drive. So that answered that question. Here's another one. All of a sudden, these are popping up. How to meet the customer a lot, avoid the no thank you, we don't need salesperson's help. Oh, great question. Okay, great question. So my understanding that this question is, what do you do when the customer doesn't want to be with a salesperson? Okay. You've got to understand when a customer says something to the fact of, is it okay if I walk around by myself? They're telling you they're scared. It's a sign. I'm scared of you. So how are you going to get that customer to spend time with you? You got to remove the fear. So what's their fear? Their fear is that you're going to sell them a car today. Well, if you remove that fear, they're going to spend time with you. So when a customer says to me, listen, is it okay if we walk around by myself? I would say, absolutely, of course you can. Can I assume that means you've just started your shopping process? Which, of course, everyone's going to say, yeah. I'd say, can I also assume that means you don't have to buy a car today? And I'm going, oh, no, not today. Great. That takes all the pressure off me as a salesperson. That's wonderful. I'll tell you what, I'd love to spend time with you. Why don't we do this? Why don't we consider today's visit just an informational gathering event? We'll look at some cars. If you see anything you like, let me know. I'll grab some keys. We can sit inside of them. And then before you leave, I'd be happy to give you all the information and all the pricing you need to then go home, take home, think about, and consider, and compare with the other cars you're going to look at in your shopping process. So were you guys leaning more towards a new or used car? New? Great. A coupe, a sedan, minivan, utility vehicle, truck. Say, come on, let me show you what we got. You see, what I've done is I've removed the fear that I'm not going to try to sell them a car today. But let's talk about this for a quick second. Am I still going to try to sell them a car today? Of course I am. I'm a car salesman. All I'm trying to do is to get them to relax so that I can spend time with them. Now, I'm going to go out there on the lot. We're going to walk around. I'm going to let them look at the different cars. I'll let them look at window stickers. And here's how I get them to sit in the car. I say, is there one you'd like to sit in? Well, yeah, how about that one right there? Great, I'll get the keys. I go through my processes, my presentations. We're going to demo ride. No trial closes, no nothing. Now they've been with me for 90 minutes. We go back in, we do the service walk. I like to introduce them to service advisors and service managers. I think it's a cherry on top of a good sundae. I bring them in my office or my desk. I sit them down. I say, let me get those numbers for you. I go get the numbers. Now think about this. Do you think they remembered what they told me 2 hours earlier? Do you think they remembered what I said about information? No. Trust me. They've forgotten about that. And it boils down to the other question. Have I earned the right to ask them again, to ask them, first of all, for the sale? And the answer is yes. So I come out and I say, I have great news. Here's this on the worksheet, blah, 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 blah. Hey, folks, how does that sound? Would you guys like to buy the car? And you see what I did? I took someone that was extremely defensive, lowered that defensive posture, and got them into my process. And I got a chance to sell them a car. Now, do I sell everybody a car? No, of course not. That now boils down to what my follow-up skills are afterwards, and that's going to be another session. Okay, how to meet the customer, what to avoid the, oh, I think we already did that one. Okay, all right. I don't see any other questions. Does anybody else have any other questions? I'm just checking. I'm surprised we got a ton of people on today. I know what usually ends up happening. Half of you are going to email me your questions afterwards, and I'll answer them that way. So with that said, let's end today's session. I want to thank you all for participating. As always, I had a great time. Enjoyed talking to all of you. I hope some of my ideas get some good use. Try them, experiment with them. Please let me know the feedback, how you're doing. And hopefully I'll see you all again next Friday. And we'll talk about selling some cars in service. Let me show you how to sell some cars in service. So again, everybody, thank you. Take care. Be safe. Be well. And I'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you for watching my video, and I hope I inspired you. If you enjoyed the content, please like, share, and click the subscribe button. Once you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell so you can receive more content like this every week. And should you have any comments or questions, I'd love to hear them.